Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial's set correctly to USA Prepares. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. And if you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. And if you'd like to bring us with you as you travel, or if you'd like to listen on the phone, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. So link to your instructors on the website, usaprepares.com. I'm Vincent Finelli. John is engineering the broadcast. And with us today from Australia is Guineith Isaacs. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you?
That's great to hear your voice. Very, very well. Guineith, at the top of the hour news, I don't know if you heard that while you were on hold, but there was a statement made that about the election today, or the selection today, calm down and relax. I've got to tell you, our phone's been ringing off the hook here at the farm, and everyone that calls, everyone that's shown up at our door has been extremely concerned about this selection. And, today is the day that it is decided for us who will be the CEO of the corporation. And what I'm hearing is that if the selection is stolen from we, the villagers, there will be violence. That's what I'm hearing. Are you hearing that about what's called the presidential election in Australia? Are you hearing that about
absolutely
us?
I'm hearing that. I've been following this, here in Australia, and I've been posting on my Facebook. It's going to be really, really bad if Hillary's elected, because this woman, I have been following her career for the last 20 years, from the Antipodes, or more than that, actually. And what can I say? She's a psychopath.
Can you speak up? Can you speak up a little bit? Yeah.
She's a psychopath.
Yeah.
Can
you
hear
speak
that?
up a little
She's
bit?
A psychopath. She's crazy. And, Tex Mars, a number of years ago, wrote a book called Hillary's Hellcats. And you can get it on Amazon. And I read it way back when I was probably it would be about 20 years ago almost. And I thought, man, oh man, this woman's crazy. There's actually, from my memory, I could be wrong, but from memory, there's a list of 200 unsolved murders that have been linked back to Hillary Clinton, which is in the covers of this book, researched by Tex Mars. And Tex Mars is quite a researcher. He doesn't just make statements left and right. And ever since then, I have been watching this woman very, very closely, and it greatly concerns me that she is within, she's basically going to be given the White House. And it's not going to be a fair election, okay? I work as a professional psychic, and the whole idea of future viewing very much interests me, okay? And I, as a part of my ongoing education, I follow other psychics and other people who are future viewers. So I follow, Courtney Brown and his Time Cross project. I follow Cliff High and the Webbot project. I follow, I've followed the work of John Titor, although he's not strictly a psychic, he's a time traveller, but even so, he gives a view on the future. And also David Wilkerson. These people have one thing in common, that there is a female leader of the United States at the end of days who ends up being completely evil and does a great deal of damage before she is done. And I certainly think that we have been thoroughly warned to not give this woman an inch of space, and she is really going to do a lot of damage when she gets in. I think that Trump will probably be elected, but they won't let him be inaugurated. That's the view that I'm getting from my metadata studies of future viewing. Okay? A lot of people say that, that she gets there, but not by fair means. You know what I mean? That
Sure.
She cheats her way in, basically, by some means or other. And so it's very worrying because this woman could, it would almost be a grace if she went and had a massive stroke or something like that. But I don't think she will because of the magnitude of evil spirits that are in her, which has come out, what Alex Jones was talking about her black magic practices. This is something that she has also been engaged with for a very, very long time. And, I think I posted also on my YouTube channel about her, and I said, wait until the satanic BS Coprola hits the propeller, I think was the words that I used. And sure enough, it did, and I'm grateful that it did, because people need to know what this woman is really like. And in a word, she's evil.
You won't get much disagreement from anyone who is in our broadcast classroom. There's a tremendous amount of concern. How did this woman get so far with so much evil? How, you mentioned the unsolved murders. If you just go to Google and you type in Clinton, unsolved murders, you'll see search results, the Clinton body count. You'll see Clinton death list. You'll see 90 suspicious deaths of individuals close to Bill Clinton. And I remember hearing this for years and years and years. And the last thing I would want to do is be a friend of the Clintons, because the likelihood of an early death is great if you're close to the Clintons. And even if you watch some of the television series like House of Cards, Scandal, and these are available on Netflix, you will see fiction being shown that the important thing is me first. The White House, the job, the status, the power, and those kinds of things. And murder, if you have to do it, well, that's fine. That's fine because, what matters is, winning that top spot. And it's disgraceful. Our son, when he was very, very young, I asked him, I said, so what is royalty? And he was 11 years old. And he said, oh, Dad, those are the people who are willing to kill more than anyone else. And if you think about it, isn't that what we're talking about? Like the Clinton royalty? That, they'll beat up small countries, they'll steal resources, and then the news will say, We're doing this to promote democracy, this poor country that we just destroyed the infrastructure of, we just destroyed the water supply of, we just destroyed the power grid of. We've had all this, what they call collateral damage, which is really destroying bodies, killing people, maiming people, wounding people, forever destroying them. And all in the name of, we want to help them. It's idiotic, and it's idiotic that we believe that. And I'd like to share something with you today that, as I was thinking about the selection process, I was thinking about what happened the last time I went to be polled for what my opinion was and what I'd like to see happen in what they call the voting booth. Well, I walked in, my mom and my wife and I walked in, and at the same time, and we discussed how we would vote. So we would vote in unison. No one of us would cancel the vote of the other two. And when we walked in, we're known here in the little village. People can look at us and say, "Hey, Vinny," "Hey, Mrs. Finelli." Same thing to my mom. They know who we are, and so they recognize us by face. But yet they still want proof of who we are, and so they get the ID proof of who we are. And here's what they did the last time: they entered us into an iPad. They entered us in, and what does that mean? That means that there's a timestamp as to when we were registered for our opinion. Okay, and then we go and get this paper ballot, and then we mark the paper ballot, like a multiple choice test. And then we take the paper ballot, it's heavy paper, and you put it into a machine that reads this paper ballot. Now, here's what I'm saying. If you think that, at least in our little village, if you think that your vote or your opinion as to what you would like to have happen is confidential and private, I'm here to tell you, I believe, this is just my opinion, that I believe that this iPad voter check-in system with a timestamp and the 2 or 3 minute or 4 or 5 minute later taking that paper test and putting it into the reader, the timestamp can let them figure out with pretty good certainty who voted and how. So I don't think that the voting or the polling or the opinion or how you do on this test of your opinions is private anymore. And if you add to that facial recognition, it's not private. We'll be right back. So a number of us are asking, how did Hillary get to this point where she's even a candidate for CEO of the corporation? How is that possible? Well, it's through corruption, and it's through manipulation, and it's through the media. And boy, how alarming is it? My wife, Mrs. Finelli, went to school with Bruce Springsteen. And whose team is Bruce Springsteen on? He's on her team. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So we've decided that anyone who is for that team is not a friend of ours, because she wants to raise taxes. She wants to have gun control, gun registration, probably gun confiscation, more restrictions, more government control on the villagers. I'm not interested in any of that. So anyone who is on her, what did George Bush say? Something like W. Didn't he say something like, if you're not with us, you're with the terrorists? Okay. So if you're not with us, you're with the terrorists. And who are they? They would be domestic terrorists. I can't think of any other way of describing them. And so today, Selection Day, is really important. And I'm not looking forward to tomorrow and coming on the air if she is selected. Boy, I mean, what would I say? I've been thinking about that for weeks. I have no idea. What do you say when the election's been stolen? Can there really be that many stupid people and in America to allow this to happen? Is that possible? I can't imagine. I can't imagine that many stupid people. But then I see people texting in the fog at night on the interstate, weaving, bouncing off both lanes. How idiotic is that? I guess that same kind of person might actually be in favor of the Hillary regime. This whole thing is disgusting. It's an outrage. This is not the America that I grew up in, the 1950s and the 1960s. Guineith, any further thoughts? Did we lose Guineith?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I can. Any thoughts on my disappointment with the status of things, that Hillary has gotten this far?
Yeah, absolutely. You know something? What happened was they had a Jay-Z and Beyonce concert, pop stars. And Hillary was going to come because they realised that no one was going to show up to her event if she just spoke on her own, okay? And then somebody from InfoWars had a reporter there afterwards to, talk to the people coming out of this concert/political event when everybody was just there to see Jay-Z and Beyonce, okay? And what they said was the people who were being interviewed were asked, don't you think that it's a bit, wrong or sad that, this woman, she's been implicated in satanic ritual abuse and, black magic rituals. And do you know what they said? They said, oh, we don't care about that. We don't care about that. All we want is to see her elected because of some stupid reason. I forget what it was, but it was something like she's a woman, she's going to help the black people, blah, 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 basically. That, all of the usual crap that has been put across to people that people are stupid enough to believe, and they basically were saying, we don't care that she's been doing black magic ceremonies in her spare time. We just want to see her elected because we like her.
Yeah, and I remember people saying of Bill Clinton, what he does with his zipper, that's private stuff, and that's okay because that doesn't affect how he behaves in office. I guess that turned out to be wrong too. So, do you think that the ilk of Bill would rub off on Hillary and vice versa? I surely do. We'll be right back. Class, today is selection day, and Guineith Isaacs in Australia is with us. And Guineith, I'd just like to read a quick article, and then we can get on with the broadcast. This is from nymag.com, and it's titled, Bill Clinton Killed 50 People. Not directly, of course. That's what it says. And it was published November 17th, 2013. So here it goes. The Deputy White House Counsel, Vince Foster, found dead with a revolver in his hand just after filing a year's worth of delinquent Whitewater tax returns. Commerce Secretary Ronald Brown reportedly close to indictment for corruption when the Air Force CT-43 carrying him went down outside Dubrovnik. Former White House intern Mary Mahoney shot execution style and deposited in the back room of a Georgetown Starbucks. Luther Parks, head of security at Clinton campaign headquarters, said to have compiled opposition research file on Clinton's illicit activities, who died of multiple gunshot wounds. Former CIA Director William Colby who had recently turned his attention to Vincent Foster's suicide. Kevin Ives and Don Henry, slain and then placed on railroad tracks. 2 of the 10 deaths with some connection to the Arkansas drug ring Clinton is believed by some to have helped cover up. 2 supposed mistresses, 7 prominent Democrat fundraisers who died under mysterious circumstances, and 28 bodyguards, escorts, and Secret Service agents, along with more than a dozen other witnesses and former friends, rivals, journalists, and investigators. That's a lot of people who died in unsolved murders, hard-to-explain suicides, accidents, even for a very sociable politician. End of the article. So I just wanted to share that with you, class. I'll post that on the website, USA Prepares, so you can read exactly what I just read for yourselves. Guineith, is that information discussed in your country, Australia, or is it not?
Well, the ABC, I think they must be on the Clintons' payroll. Maybe that's a Freudian slip. They must be on the Clintons' payroll because as far as they're concerned, gold dust comes out of her backside.
When you say ABC, you mean the Australian Broadcasting Company, right?
That's right. Australian Broadcasting Corporation. That's not the American one.
Uh-huh.
That is, they are basically on the radio. They're the only news network on the radio in the whole country that broadcasts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just news. There's News Talk radio, but it's not out here in the bush, and they are just as much in the, pay of whoever runs America as anyone. And the only one really, the only 2 really in broadcasting who have been standing up for the truth have been 2 people called John Clark and Darren Hinch. Now, John Clark and Darren Hinch are actually both New Zealanders, funnily enough. They're not Australians at all. And I'm a New Zealander as well, and I'm wondering what's happened to all these Aussies, because I know of a few Australians who are common law campaigners, but somehow they're blocked out of the media. And, there's only these 2, John Clark and Darren Hinch, that are actually telling the truth. And Darren Hinch is especially vocal about the pedophile cartel because he was molested as a boy and he's just not leaving it alone. And he was recently elected as a senator, a federal senator in Australia, which is good for him. And he's been using his parliamentary privilege to name pedophiles, which has completely freaked out the lamestream over here. So, but if you go to the Hansard for Australia, it's published online. That's the parliamentary records of all their speeches. The text of it is published online, and so you can go and find out who they are. Because you can't be arrested in this country for things that you say in Parliament. So and that goes for the Senate as well. So good on you, Darren Hinch.
Okay, I'm going to ask our engineer, John, if you could put David in San Francisco on for me, please. Okay. David, you're on with Guineith Isaacs. Welcome.
Yeah, hi. I was kind of inspired to call when I heard her talking about Australian media and, like, sort of mind control techniques. Rupert Murdoch started in Australia, right?
Yep, that's right.
And how bad was he from the start?
Awful.
Sure.
He was awful. He started out, okay, was a paper called the Adelaide Advertiser that he inherited from his father, and his father's name was Sir Keith Murdoch. And Sir Keith Murdoch was actually a jolly fine, highly ethical journalist. Okay?
Was that his dad?
And Sir Keith Murdoch married Elizabeth Murdoch, who was quite a bit younger than him, but they had a long and happy marriage, and Elizabeth Murdoch was a lovely lady, and how they came up with Rupert is quite beyond me. But Sir Keith's big scoop that made him famous was he was the one who exposed the Boer War concentration camps that the British were running, that were locking up all the Afrikaners, which was more or less the model that the Nazis used when it came to dealing with the Jews.
Right.
And Sir Keith blew the lid off of that back in the day.
That was his dad?
That was his claim to fame.
Uh-huh.
That was about the scoop of the century way back when, because the British have always said that they have the highest moral and ethical standards, but as we all know, that ain't always so.
Right. And brutality like that, He's been a piece of work from the beginning, and he's made most of his money in pornography. Page 3 girls. They got the morality police of the Fox News. All wearing low-cut dresses and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. See, what throws me is that Rupert Murdoch, as I understand it, is so pervasive that he basically has discount news. And so the most people in the world take his stuff because he's the cheapest in town. And then he just spins lies all through it. So that's how rumors start. That's how news stories are floated. And a lot of it is just hokum and discount news. No inspection, no oversight. And so now the world is like torn apart, by two stupid candidates, and it's all because of a guy like Rupert. Yeah, that's right. And the only one who ever was a really serious challenge to him was another guy by the name of Kerry Packer, who owned about the other half of the newspapers in Australia that Rupert didn't own. And his empire was called Fairfax Media, and he died a number of years ago. And his son, Sir James Packer, supposedly Sir James, has inherited his empire, bought a casino, and managed to lose a vast amount of money running the casino. So he's probably the only person in history, probably the only soul in history to ever lose money running a casino. Right. I don't know if you know it. Well, out here in San Francisco, probably an early predecessor of his was William Randolph Hearst, who was able to create. He created the Spanish-American War totally out of spite. Was it the famous artist Remington? The famous artist Remington was down in Havana, Cuba, when the battleship Maine exploded like 100 and something years ago. And real quick, William Randolph Hearst he telegraphs the artist and tells him, send me some drawings of battle scenes. Because Hearst was trying to play it up that the ship exploded because of Civil War, but in fact it was a total hoax. And Remington writes back, he says, there's no battles down here. And Hearst shoots back another one and says, show me battle scenes, I'll give you a war. And he did, and Hearst owned so many newspapers that he basically jump-started the entire nation into a war that didn't happen. And it turned out 100 years later, they inspected the hull of that ship, and it turned out it blew up from the inside, which meant it was a coal fire. And so the whole the whole Spanish-American War was fought for years. Vast amount of land was conquered, so to speak, and ended up run by dictatorships in order to satisfy Hearst's lust for war. It was pretty amazing. And and so Rupert doing 2 or 3 wars. What I'm leading up to with Rupert is
Dick Cheney, our Vice President Cheney, had Halliburton as his big company for a long time. And lately he's gotten into another company called Genie Oil Gas. And they have the fracking rights of the Holy Land. And so he's got like 53 square miles of the Golan Heights. And his business plan is he wants to run a pipeline across Syria into Turkey and create customers in Europe. They get the high dollar for that gas. And unfortunately, Syria doesn't want that pipeline crossing their front yard. So ISIS is Dick Cheney's private army. Hey, thanks for your time.
Can you see the Battle of Armageddon happening on account of that?
You want to hold on?
They're running it right up the middle of the Hamagata Valley. I don't know if they are or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did.
David, we can hold you through the break for a couple minutes. Okay, we'll be right back. Class, if you'd like to have a link to Guineith Isaac's Facebook page, I guess go to usapreparedness.com, page number 1, and it's ready for you. David in San Francisco, if you could go very quickly, that would be great, because I've got a couple quick things we need to do before the end of the broadcast with Guineith. David? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, and she just raised something, and I didn't quite catch it.
I said it would be really interesting if this pipeline ran straight up the middle of the valley of Hamagata, which runs through northern Israel up into Syria, because that is the location of the Battle of Armageddon.
Well, genie in a bottle, that's how you spell it. And these guys, I don't know, since Cheney doesn't actually have a heart, maybe, do you think he did that for tax purposes or so that he couldn't be prosecuted as a living human?
I don't know, but I know what a genie is. In the Arabic world, it's an evil spirit.
And the Cheney is kind of close to genie, yeah. Yeah,
genie is close to Cheney, and the word is jinnah in Arabic, and it means evil spirit. And the idea is that you trap the evil spirit in a bottle, and it does work for you, but it ends up stealing your soul.
Well, I wonder how we could stop this guy. Let's see. You say we've got to get him in the bottle. I guess he's probably got to go in for checkups on his heart. I wonder if we could hold him as a medical experiment.
That's right.
David,
he's got an artificial heart, hasn't he?
An infection, or something like that.
Yeah,
David, we got to run. I've got a couple.
Sure, thanks, Vincent. Good week.
A couple quick things that I need to go over with Guineith. Hey, David, thank you so much. I appreciate the call. Guineith,
yes?
You called me several days ago, and you were very concerned about what's happening in the power production system in Australia.
Yes,
what's going on there?
This is very important. They're going to be shutting one of the main coal-fired power stations here in Australia. I'm glad you reminded me. I've completely forgotten. It produces a quarter of the electricity for the state of Victoria. And there's 3 other coal-fired power stations, okay? 2 or 3 other. I think there's 2 others, and the rest of the electricity in the state is generated with wind power and with solar, a small amount with solar. But you know something? This is because of the Paris Treaty that this coal-fired power station is going to be shut down, okay? Now, the other one of the power stations that's also probably going to be shut down within the next 2 or 3 years is at Portland, and that supplies electricity to an aluminium smelter, which is a major source of industry in that area. And without the coal-fired power station, the aluminium smelter is going to close. And so what we're looking at in the next 2 or 3 years is losing 2 or 3/4 of our electricity generating capacity in this state. And that is going to cause a major economic collapse here in the state of Victoria. And we have a population of 5 million people in this state. And in rural Victoria, not so much in Melbourne, which has a population of 3 million, but there's 2 million people living in rural Victoria, and our economy is absolutely struggling. The globalists are shutting down our economy left and right, and it's going to be really bad.
Guineith, I really appreciate you. I appreciate you calling in from Australia and giving these updates.
Yeah.
Yep, and some people may say, you know what, we don't need so much electricity because, well, there won't be so many of us who survive the threats that have been unleashed on us. Guineith, thank you again, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. We'll be back after these top of the hour commercial announcements and news. We're going to be talking about, is nuclear war survivable? Everyone all set, cocked, and locked? Hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. And for those of you new to the class, there are over 200 of us here at USA Prepares. And experts in various areas. All of us are innovators. We're dentists, medical doctors, engineers, surgeons, CEOs, broadcasters, editors, researchers, authors, physicists, programmers, farmers, and inventors. And we're students rising to become instructors. None of us is capable of holding down a job. And I'm delighted to introduce your newest instructor, Shayne Connor, and his website, goodnewsnuke.com. Welcome, Shayne.
Hey, Vincent. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's delightful broadcasting with you. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the faculty. So goodnewsnuke.com. And, you know, I have in the studio civil defense survey meters. And you and I were talking about this. And I guess these ultimately came from you because you bought the most of the inventory from the federal government. What happened? What happened to the civil defense program? Because I remember back in the 1950s and the 1960s, our teachers in elementary school saying, "Okay, we're gonna have a little drill today, and what we're gonna do is we're going to leave our class seats very, very quickly but orderly, and we're gonna go into the hall and we're gonna sit with our backs against the wall, and we're gonna put our heads down, and then we'll come back to our classroom, after a couple minutes." We used to do that. We don't do that anymore. What happened to civil defense in the United States?
Well, it was an early casualty of political correctness. We've had 60 years of the disarmament movement trying to dissuade anybody from any alternatives to their agenda, which was to ban the bomb. They wanted everybody to feel that there's no surviving any nuke. Your only chance at survival is to go ahead and ban the bomb completely. And unfortunately, after 60 years of this, most people feel today that if a nuke were to go off anywhere, that the best they can do is bend over and kiss their butt goodbye, which is unfortunate because it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy for these people that if you think you can't survive, you're not going to strive to learn how you could. And thus you are going to be a casualty. So after Reagan left, the first Bush administration started the curtailing the FEMA state partnership that had these meters in every county in America and fallout shelters. And then the Clinton administration totally shut it down. And we've only got half a dozen states that kept their labs open, kept their meters, and they're still out there, primarily for EMS and fire departments, not for the general public. Texas, Ohio, Florida, and a couple other states have kept their program up. And primarily they're concerned about trans-state shipment of radioactive materials. If they had a train accident or a truck accident, they could respond to it. So anyways, we're largely on our own because the politicians have also bought into the myth that nukes are unsurvivable. And unfortunately, 90% of the expected casualties are 100% avoidable if only people knew what to do and not do.
Okay, so why don't we talk about that? So what on your website, you have another website as well, and it's called KI4, the number 4, and the letter U.com. If you go there, there's a link that says what to do if a nuclear disaster is imminent. Can you give us a instruction on what should we do? So we listen to the radio and we're here, they're coming, it's going to be, just a few minutes and they're going to be here, duck and cover, or what do we do? What do we do?
Well, the first thing, too, that everybody needs to be taught, especially your children, is that if there is a sudden surprising bright flash, brighter than anything you'd ever seen across town, the last thing you want to do is run to the nearest window to see what it is. And we saw this in Russia with that meteor strike a couple of years ago. They had 1,500 casualties, and this was from people rushing to the nearest window to see what the bright flash was. And the shock wave is delayed. It's like lightning and thunder. You see the flash first, the thunder comes later. Well, the shock wave is also delayed, and they had 1,500 casualties. And in the goodnewsnuke.com article, we talk about one teacher there. For whatever reason, she had everybody duck and cover, would not let them impulsively rush to the windows. She was still standing up as she's making sure all the kids are hunkered down. And when the blast wave came, she was actually injured. I mean, it was serious enough. But none of her kids were. But other kids in the school that had just rushed to the window with their teachers, they had a lot of casualties. So the first thing is duck and cover. Any bright flash, hit the deck. I mean, even if you're caught out in the open, you're 8 times less likely to be hit by the shock wave or to be picked up by it and thrown against something, 8 times less likely just to lay down flat on the ground. We're dealing with a 3-second tornado strength wind, and the last thing you want to do is have your nose pressed against the closest glass window.
Excellent point. So if you're outside, get down on the ground and make yourself as close to the ground as possible. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And if you have a chance, this bright light is going to be casting some big shadows. And if you're in the light area, go ahead and dive behind something that'll put you in the shade and out of the thermal energy as well. And this is so easy to do because you're going to have on the order of 5 to 20 seconds before the shock wave arrives. We've seen those pictures of the explosions where, for instance, the rocket fuel place went up, and you could see that shock wave going out from the center of the explosion. So you got this bright light, brighter than anything you've ever seen in your life. Hit the deck. Don't rush to the windows. Get below windows. Get down. And it's going to show up within the next 2 minutes. And it's going to be over in about 3 seconds. It'll blow through, and then that's it. And that's a lot of your casualties are going to be people that did not do that. In the Good News Nuke article, we also talk about double bomb survivors that survived Hiroshima and then went on to a safer city. Unfortunately, they went to Nagasaki. Wow. But from what they learned in Hiroshima, they were able to save many people in Nagasaki because they told them, if you see a bright flash, hit the deck. Don't go outside looking for the source of it.
Mm-hmm. What about those who might be inside? Should they race to the basement right then and there?
They need to get down and away from any windows. They're going to have a tornado strength blast wave coming towards them from the direction of the light. So if they can go deeper, that's fine. But you don't want to spend any time where you're exposed in movement. In most cases, you're better off just ducking right where you are. You don't know how many seconds you have before it's going to show up. So if you've got to run through a room that's going to expose you to a window to run downstairs, I would say just duck and cover right where you are.
We have a friend who was showing us some steel doors on tornado shelters, and one of the things he showed me was a video of a university test where they fired a 2x4, let's say 8, 10, 12 feet long, out of like a cannon at this door. And the idea was to show how strong the door was. Now, the idea is not to talk about that fallout or that shelter, that tornado shelter, but won't there be projectiles flying through the air that we need to worry about as well?
No, absolutely. And that's part of the reason you're getting down from the window, because with this shock wave, it's also carrying along a lot of the crud it's picked up before it got to you. Mm-hmm. So you need to be down and below it. I mean, just think tornado. And the tornado's got a lot of stuff in it. And the last thing you want to do is have your nose pressed against the closest window. So you've got to get down and below and underneath this. And the interesting thing we found was typically the largest weapon that both sides have, all the three major powers, is going to be 500 KT. Most of the weapons run 100 to 500 KT. There's a few larger, but most of them are going to be in that neighborhood. And with a 500 KT, you've got total destruction where you would not be able to survive at ground zero. And that's about a 2.2 mile radius out from the center. Unless you happen to be underground in a subway or something at the time, you're gone. Now, for that 2.2 mile, to get to the edge of that 2.2 mile where it starts becoming survivable again, because the pressure is starting to go down, if you duck and covered, it's going to be 8 seconds before it gets to that point. And then it's going to go on for about 20 seconds past that out to about 9 miles. And we're talking about the pressure wave, and it's getting less the further it goes out. If the population was evenly distributed over the entire affected area, and you subtract out all of the people that are lost in the 2.2 mile ground zero area, there's 15 times more people in the blast zone, but outside of the area of total destruction where duck and cover could save their life. Over 15 times fewer casualties are possible when everybody knows to do duck and cover. But what's going to happen today? If it happened today, every kid at school, everybody at work, everybody at home, if we had a bright flash on the other side of town, they're all impulsively rushing to the nearest window because this is no longer being taught. And this is really tragic. And it's going to be such a needless loss of life. Think of that, 15 times more casualties simply because people weren't taught.
And that's a really good point, because as you were saying that, I was reflecting. I believe we were taught that 2, 3, or 4 times per school year in the 1950s and the 1960s, just to make sure we knew what to do. And now we're not being taught at all. Shayne Connor. And his website is at usaprepares.com in the instructors tab. We'll be right back. Class, Shayne Connor's with us, and the website, goodnewsnuke.com. Shayne's got 17 years in the business of civil defense equipment and education. He's got the largest inventory of civil defense era survey equipment in the country, and he's got the largest non-government radiation calibration lab in the country. So he's been in this for a long time, and he really has a handle on what to do. So I'm at the Good News About Nuclear Destruction website. Shayne, when we move on to some of the things that we need to think about, like what to do if a nuclear disaster is imminent, what do we do? Do we stay? Do we go? How do we make that decision?
Well, it's a tough decision. You've got to have thought all this out beforehand. it's kind of like playing musical chairs. You could be anywhere during the day, and you need to know that in your regular travels to work or to school or picking up the kids, if that bright flash happens, you need to know where you would go, and you need to be looking at places besides your home if you couldn't make it back to the home where you might have to sit it out. And there's an awful lot of opportunities here. When you're dealing with fallout, understand first that the plume is going to go downwind, and it's a relatively thin pizza slice. Maybe 5% of the compass rose is going to be affected. So a lot of people that make preparations, the fallout's not even going to come to them. But everybody needs to know how to do it because we don't know where you're going to be relative to the wind and where the bomb went off. But what you're looking at is 48 hours. The fallout is dangerous because it's giving off so much energy, which also means it gets weak very quickly. It dissipates. In the first 7 hours, it's going to already have lost 90% of its lethal intensity. And another sevenfold increase in time, 7 times 7, roughly 2 days, it's going to have lost 99% of its lethal intensity. So even if you got yourself into an expedient, cramped, uncomfortable situation, you can put up with anything for 2 days if it provided you enough distance and shielding from the radioactive fallout if it happened to come where you are. For most people, movement after the nuke has gone off, if it's anywhere near close to you, I'm not talking 100 miles away, but if it's anywhere near close to you, your best bet is going to be to hunker down right where you are. It's not going to be to get out on the road because everybody's going to be doing that. The roads are going to be clogged up. You're not going to make that quick 3-mile trip as fast as you might have otherwise. Most people just needed to stay home because the fallout wasn't even coming near them, but you're going to have a lot of people out on the road. Most people will be better served to just stay where they are rather than risk being caught out in the open, caught in traffic, and then exposed with no protection whatsoever.
You know, as you mentioned this, I was stranded in Maryland. I live in Missouri, and I was going to a high school reunion, my 45th. I never made it there, and I was stranded at a rest stop for 2 days, and with my wife, Mrs. Finelli, and I said, you know, this is really a good test, and it's great being stranded here, even though it's a little uncomfortable, and even though we don't have any heat in the vehicle, but we do have blanket, and we do have some food and water, so we're pretty good. It was a great test to see if we could just stay where we were for a couple days, and I didn't know why, and this was just, you know, within the last 10 days that this happened. So I think I know you're absolutely right. You need to discuss this with your family and figure out where you're going to go, who's going where, so you don't go looking for each other and cross paths and not find each other, right?
No, absolutely. For any natural disaster, civil disturbance, financial crash, whatever happens, you need to have contingency plans for, if everything goes to hell, if you're here, go here. If you're here, go there. And so you know where to expect your other family members when you're able to move around again. And
let's go. For the rest of this broadcast, why don't we go down the list of, what to do if a nuclear disaster is imminent? We did stay or go, but then what do you do first? Then food, then water, then shelter. What do you do immediately? How can we build a shelter? Where do we get plans for that? Where do we get ideas for that? And then essential details and so forth. We'll be right back. Shayne Connor's with us, and you can go to his website, goodnewsnuke.com, and he has another website, the letter K, letter I, the number 4, the letter U, KI4U.com. Shayne, so what do we do if we know it's coming? What do we do first? You say that you need to delegate and assign different adult family members to specific tasks. Can you share with us specifically what we need to think about right now? Because we could be in the path of nuclear destruction at any second, right?
No, absolutely. We wrote the Good News Nuke and also the document it points to what to do if a nuclear disaster is imminent. We wrote them for an audience that largely doesn't exist yet. We understand that the majority of people are not going to read this information until something has happened in the world, whether it's here or Pakistan and India trade a nuke, or Iran or Syria kicks up, or North Korea gets really belligerent. Until a nuke has gone off somewhere in the world, most people, they want to think about anything other than this. But when it has happened, everybody's going to be in a panic. We're going to be sold out in 24 hours. So we wanted to write these documents for that coming audience and concentrate on what they can still do and acquire locally. And there's tons that people can do in resources that they have locally that if a nuke comes closer to home, or another one comes, they're going to be able to locally put together whatever they need to do. So let's say a nuke has happened overseas and you've got this information at hand. You're going to be directed for what supplies to go get, what food to get, loading up water at the house. You can never store too much water. And if you have enough adult family members while that's going on and somebody's grabbing the supplies while everybody else has got their, the deer staring into the headlights going on, trying to figure it out. If you're in motion and you can do some of these things while the stores are still good to go to, other adult members at the house can go ahead and commence building your fallout shelter in the house. And what we're trying to do is maximize mass around where you're going to hunker down for 48 hours and also position it so that we maximize the distance away from the fallout that will be outside, on the roof, on the ground, in the tree leaves, etc. And I'll give you, for instance, if originally where you're looking at putting your shelter would be 10 feet away from the outside where the fallout would be, if you can simply reposition it to double that distance to 20 feet away from where the fallout would be by being in a more central place in your house, you just cut the gamma ray lethality, the strength of it, to 1/4 of what it was at 10 feet away. So distance is the first thing that you want to maximize. And if you have a basement, great. We're going to go down in the basement and do something. But everything we're talking about can be done on the ground floor. If you don't have a basement, you're just going to want to maximize the distance and pile up anything that has weight, has mass, and will absorb some of the gamma radiation. And we're talking books, we're talking full file cabinets, we're talking the water barrels, and again, we could have simply trash cans that you went ahead and put a new liner in and ran a hose inside and started filling it up with water. You needed that water. And if you're on a ground level floor where you don't have to worry about putting too much weight on a floor below, you're going to want to position your water and your food and your ammo, all of this stuff, you want to encircle yourself with it in the smallest space that's still comfortable, and also have a top to it. If we got under a heavy table or pool table or anything else, so that we can pile more weight on top of it and simply get as much weight around you as possible. It will be absorbing the radioactive gamma rays from the fallout that'll be coming right through the side of the house. These are like X-rays, and it will absorb it. I mean, 2 feet of earth, or 3 feet of cordwood is going to make a huge difference. And anything that has weight, you want to add it to this encirclement that you're going to do. And we have pictures of this and how to do it, and we have videos of people doing it. I have a video on the What to Do If a Nuclear Disaster is Imminent by Crescent Kearney doing this at his house. He's the fellow that wrote Nuclear War Survival Skills book. And he's showing how he's doing it with cardboard boxes that they simply threw dirt into. And he piles them all up and around in a pile and they crawl in under there. And again, 48 hours later, yes, you're cramped, uncomfortable, et cetera, 99% of the lethal intensity is gone. You can, at that point, safely join the evacuation, but in a lot of cases, you don't even have to do that. It's over. So you're not having, what we want people to understand is you don't need a $60,000 bunker out in the backyard. We don't want people disqualifying themselves from doing anything because they think it would require such a high hurdle that they're not going to have the time or money to do. So this is the key. The free information that we have is more important than any of the products we've ever sold. And if we get enough people reading it in time, it'll save more lives than the 30,000 nuke alerts we've sold in the last 17 years, and the 8 million doses of potassium iodide and everything else. Knowledge is the key. And when we're sold out and everybody's in a panic, we want to make sure they've got the knowledge where they can do and acquire things locally that'll make all the difference in the world.
You mentioned potassium iodide, and there was a panic when Fukushima went off. And I mentioned to a friend, why don't you go pick up some? So he raced over to a store that had some, and they had five bottles. And he said, okay, I'd like to buy those, but he didn't have all the money. So he said, let me give you this deposit, $20, and I'm going to an ATM. I'll be right back. And when he came back, there were less than 5 in the bag. So what happened was even the store panicked and took out some for themselves of what he just agreed, and they agreed to sell him. So you're absolutely right. I can see, and this happened within minutes. Okay, they decided they weren't going to honor their agreement because they thought he might know something that they didn't know, and so they were going to keep some for themselves. Bottom line is, you're absolutely right. I can see the highways filling up with people in a panic, and it's every man, woman, and child for him or herself, and it would be chaos. So, in this line of discussion, how do you answer the question? I've seen these videos. Someone's saying, I've seen these videos. I've seen the images of the fallout shelters from the 1950s. And you know what? They wasted their money. They filled them up, and now all the food that's in there is rotten. The water is unusable, and the mattress has mold on it. They wasted their money. How do you respond to that?
Well, I'd ask them, you consider it a waste of money that you've been paying for fire insurance and your house hasn't burned down yet. Are you mad that your house hasn't burned down yet?
Great point. I'm with you. I am absolutely with you. And
it's insurance. And,
yeah.
Most of the preparations, when you get into it, the food and the fuel and all the different preps and the toilet paper and all this stuff, with most of the preps, they're going to serve you for any disruption in service, not just nuclear. I mean, what if you lost your job? I mean, that happens a lot. Wouldn't it be great to at least not have to worry about food for 4 to 6 months while you're looking for a new job?
No, you're absolutely right. And who hasn't lost his or her job recently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, or we could have Ebola virus where we all have to stay home, self-quarantine ourselves for weeks or months, who knows what. And again, you're going to be able to use these supplies. And a big thing we're going to be looking at, of course, is a financial, monetary, economic collapse, civil disruption, or any cascading combination of those, one after the other, where you're going to be wanting to stay home and the services may not be available. Electricity may not be on. Water may not be running. So, but even if none of these bad things ever happen, the majority of the preps that you're making, you've already saved money because for a lot of them, you bought them in bulk. And if nothing bad ever happens, you can always use the toilet paper, eat the food, use the fuel that you put the preservative in. And you haven't wasted money. You saved yourself some trips to the store, and it's a pretty good guess that all the stuff you bought is going to cost more next year anyway. So if you can stock up, it's dumb not to. Even if you don't expect a disaster to happen.
I totally agree with you. And, over the last several days, we've had friends visit the farm, and they just show up, okay? And we didn't have to say, hey, we're so glad you're here. By the way, if you're hungry, we don't have anything. If you're thirsty, we don't have anything. That's not what happened. So we are prepared, and that's all we're talking about. All we're talking about is having what you need in advance of what you needed. That's what preparation is. And in this, I'm at ki4u.com, that website of yours, and there's a really neat post on what to do if a nuclear disaster is imminent. And if I went down to some pictures you have, and it shows a basement, and it looks like a 1950s, 1960s basement, little workshop in there. It looks like Dad is preparing a homemade shelter. I see another image there where Dad has got some a chest of drawers and some books and some things piled on some piece of plywood, and you crawl under there, and you're talking about mass. So there's an image of what we're talking about. And then below that, there's another image, and it says home fallout shelter, lean-to. It's a lean-to shelter, 45-degree angle to protect you. You crawl inside this lean-to in your basement, and the idea is mass between you and the radiation. Great images. So class, you can get ready, and we're not talking about a lot of money. This is easy to do, but you got to do it. So let's talk about that when we get back. Shayne Conner, ki4u.com. Class, if you're interested in going to a gun show, November 12 and 13, arcade gun shows, Jackson, Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's November 12 and 13, Jackson, Tennessee, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we're talking with Shayne Conner, goodnewsnuke.com. Shayne, I was looking at the website, and let me just read this one sentence. This is at your website, ki4u.com. Government information and guidance is a vital resource in your response to a nuclear crisis, but for many reasons it may be late, incomplete, misleading, or simply in error. While evacuation might be prudent for individuals who act quickly in response to a threat, governments will be slow to call for mass evacuations before an event because of their potential for panic and gridlock. As past government calls for duct tape and plastic led to sold-out stores, anxiety, and derision from the press, there will be great reluctance to issue similar alarms. If you want to assure that you have adequate food, water, shelter for your family, you must act before a panic without first waiting for government instructions that may never come or come as urgently as warranted. And then you alone are ultimately responsible for your family. Very well said. Would you like to elaborate on that?
In our experience, the government's not prepared for any of this stuff. They don't. I mean, even on their best day, this is beyond their capability. Even if they did everything right, like during Katrina, we had 18 truckfuls of MREs here ready to go for Katrina, and what FEMA does is they just set up phone banks. I mean, they didn't have anything to come in there that was already pre-stocked. I mean, we were their inventory. We ended up shipping it to them and also to MEMA, Mississippi Emergency Management Agency. And afterwards, when we got the numbers, we found out that we had supplied half of all the MREs that went for Katrina. Most of them went to Mississippi. That's because most of the people had already gotten out of the New Orleans area. And I mean, they just they set up phone banks. And after 9/11, I told you the story. We get a call from the White House. They want to know how much potassium iodide we have in inventory, and it's flying out the door. And I told them I've got about 300,000 doses left. And they put me on hold, and they came back and they said, "Well, we want to take it all." And I went through some things back and forth with them on how they were going to pay for it. But anyways, that afternoon we had a Learjet. They couldn't land it in the airport outside my door here in Gonzales, so we had to run it up to the Austin airport, up to the private runway up there. And sure enough, here's a Learjet from the government port. Now, it's not that we're a big deal. It's just to relate to you how behind the curve they are. And through a congressman, a year later, we were able to find out they had a credible threat of a nuke in New York City to follow up the trade tower stuff. Now, we never could find out whether it was a false deal or whether they found it. We don't know which way that went. But that's also the congressman was able to find out that at that time, in testimony, FEMA's national supply of potassium iodide a year after 9/11 was only 600,000 doses. So half of that is what we had sold them. And they still did. That's 600,000 doses. That's enough for that many people for one day, if you could get it to them. Now, I assume they've got more today, but you're on your own. When something happens, you're going to be on your own.
Okay, I was at your website, ki4u.com, and I see a CDV 700 survey meter. I've got one of those. A CDV 715. I've got one of those. A CDV. Those are both survey meters. One's a Geiger counter, and a CDV 742, a mid-range dosimeter. And you've got a Nuke Alert meter as well. Are they still available?
Yes, they are. And
okay.
The Nuke Alert's a very good instrument to have. It runs 24/7. It's on your keychain with you all the time.
There you go. ki4u.com. Shayne Connor, thank you so much for being with us. I'm looking forward to seeing you again and again.